Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Purpose for Greatness podcast. It's me, Dr. KSD, and I am your lovely host. This is episode number 5 in the Surviving the Holidays podcast series. This one is titled Self Care is Essential. Why? Because it really is. And for those of you who are just tuning in, thank you so much. Now, go on ahead and click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. But listen, episodes 1 through 4 are also available for you to watch at any time. I really believe that they will be very helpful in assisting you with navigating any holiday that you have to endure without the loved ones who have gone on to paradise, or any holidays that just make you feel blue and sad in the first place. So, on with today's episode. Today we're talking about self-care. Why? Again, because I really and truly believe that self-care is so essential. It's not a surprise that lack of regular self-care contributes to a person's inability to overcome stressors, live to their full potential, and even live a happy and peaceful life. And unfortunately, the holidays throw a big monkey wrench in the mix for many because the hustle and bustle of the holidays, buying gifts, anticipated family gatherings, or spending the holidays alone further adds anxiety, frustration, loneliness, and feeling as though you're underappreciated, undervalued, and maybe even unloved. These things can cause great distress and emotional instability, which has the potential to snap the last thread that was holding you together. How many of you know what I'm talking about? So, to get started, I first want you to get a picture in your mind of a beautiful ivy plant with big, gorgeous leaves. Now, in order for that plant to have longevity, what does it need? Well, a good pot, of course, some rich, nutrient soil, right? It's going to need some sunlight. It's going to need to be watered. It's going to need to be pruned because the dead leaves will come, but you have to get those dead leaves off of there so they don't affect the other ones. So, if it doesn't get those things, what's going to happen? If it doesn't get sunlight, if it doesn't get water or good soil, the plant will likely die, right? Just like this plant, self care serves the same purpose for us. Self care means that we are maintaining proper physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Now, I know somebody out there asking themselves, isn't self care selfish? My answer, absolutely not. Why? The reality is this: if you are burnt out, frustrated, barely hanging on, struggling to get through each day, how exactly are you going to help anybody else get through their day? Well, self care ensures that you are in a good state of being so that you can help others reach a good state of being as well. Self care only appears to be selfish to selfish people. I call those people the takers. These are the people who are perpetually trying to see what they can get from others. They rarely give. And they will likely have the audacity to be angry with you if you do finally get up the nerve to say no. But if you aren't careful, it, it's easy to fall into the trap of takers because givers want to give so much. But if you keep giving without receiving, eventually you yourself are going to be depleted of everything you have to give. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Are any of you already in the trap? Well, we're going to get you untrapped today. Does it sound fair? Of course, it doesn't sound fair. Now, does it sound healthy? Of course, it is definitely not healthy. You see, in every aspect of our lives, there must be some semblance of harmony in order for us to have balance and peace of mind. If there is no balance, Your harmony will be interrupted, leaving you emotionally and mentally fragile at a breaking point. And you will be fighting to hold on to whatever you can, however you can. We can't live life like that. We're not meant to live life like that. If you are a giver, I want you to think about a pitcher of water, right? Water is the substance that we need to survive. Nobody can survive without water. Now imagine all of the takers out there have their cup just waiting, just needing you to pour into their lives. So you pour a little here, you pour a little there, and you keep on pouring because they keep on coming back. What happens eventually? Eventually, you are going to be empty because if there is nobody replenishing what you are giving out, you will eventually be bone dry. And when you are bone dry, then what happens to you? Now, let's look at this same scenario from the perspective of a griever. Most grievers are already half full. Whatever the loss was that they experienced in their lives, that loss has probably drained them, and they are trying to manage life the best they can, being half full. Some are physically great, but they lack the emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness needed to thrive. Some are emotionally okay, but physically, their health is declining. Whichever way you look at it, the bottom line is if all of your areas in life are not healthy, you will never be able to live to your full potential or even enjoy the life that you have. But the problem is, many grievers don't recognize that they are only half full. Why? Most grievers will engross themselves in activities to get their mind off of the pain. How many of you can relate? Yeah. Now, I've mentioned before that helping others can be very helpful when we're going through our own painful situation. There's just something about being of help to other people. But did you know that there is such a thing as helping too much? When grievers get themselves in a routine of excessively helping, they do it so they don't have to think about what is causing them so much pain. I call that gluttony of activities. Now, the Bible tells us that gluttony in any area of our lives is not good. And anytime you excessively do anything, it can turn any good thing into a harmful or even toxic thing. So let's consult the word of God, right? Proverbs 28:7 says, a companion of gluttons disgraces his father. Deuteronomy 21:20 says, they shall say to the elders, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Proverbs 23:20 to 21 says, be not among drunkards or among gluttonous meat eaters, but the drunkard and glutton will come to poverty. The Merriam Webster definition of gluttony is greedy or excessive indulgence. Most of us think of gluttony when we think about people drinking too much alcohol. However, you can be a glutton in anything. One of the things that people do when they are grieving is become gluttonous of activities. What does that look like? Drinking too much, of course, that's going to be number one, but they can eat too much. They can gamble too much. They can start using drugs, watching television too much, shopping too much, and even working too much. You see, working too much, that was my gluttonous activity. All of these things, when done in moderation, except for the drugs, of course, are not harmful. But once you cross the line, when you cross the line and you are actively pursuing these activities excessively because you want to avoid the pain of the hurt you've gone through, Now it's becoming a harmful, toxic activity. This is actually how addictions happen. Let's take the opioid epidemic, for example. How opioids work: we have opioid receptors in our brain, but the opioid themselves, they are meant to be short-term drugs. They are supposed to help with acute pain and acute issues. What ends up happening is you take the opioid because you have pain right now. The opioid will bind to the receptors in the brain. Your brain will start to believe the pain is not there. That's what opioids do. It makes your brain believe the pain is not there. And it'll work. Let's say it works for 6 hours. Then you take another and it'll work for another 6 hours. Well, what ends up happening is tolerance happens. And over time, instead of it working for 6 hours, it'll only work for four. So now you have to take it every 4 hours. And then it'll start working for only 2 hours. Now you're taking it every 2 hours. And then it's every 1 hour, maybe every 30 minutes. And eventually, you've gotten to the point where you need it all the time because your brain has stopped recognizing it as something that's supposed to be helpful. What happens at this point is you've reached your maximum dose per day. So now the doctor can't prescribe you more medicine because you've reached your max, but you need it. That's when you start turning to other things like cocaine and heroin. That's how addictions happen. It's also how accidental overdoses happen. We don't want that to happen. We want to prevent the addiction in the first place. But do you realize that most addictions happen because of losses, because of something that has happened in our lives, in our past, that is still haunting us today? That's why it's so important that we deal with these losses. So, what leads grievers to overindulge in the first place is those excessive hurts and losses and the pain that we've never ever dealt with. Many grievers unfortunately indulge in these things excessively because as long as they are busy, their minds don't have to think about the pain. And that in turn makes them not feel the pain. But the problem is, as soon as they take a break, or as soon as the effects of the drug or alcohol wear off, the pain starts to resurface. It will never just disappear, not without it being dealt with properly. So they get busy again, or they start drinking again, or they do more drugs so that they can dull the pain. It's their go to method. The problem is that it's not a fair trade off, is it? While you do get some relief, that relief is only temporary. And that temporary relief, unfortunately, can lead to more lasting detrimental personal harm, such as gambling so much can cause you to not pay your bills, putting your home and vehicle at risk. Using alcohol and drugs too much can be dangerous to you and to others, and it can potentially cause irreversible harm to your organs. Working too much can cause you to neglect your family and create a wedge between you and the people you love who are still here. The truth of the matter is this: there is nothing that you can do that will make the pain go away forever, but you can survive and you can recover, but only if you face the pain head on and get the right tools to help you. But this is how I look at losses. Consider a broken bone. The bone will eventually heal, right? But it doesn't actually heal back to its former state. For all intents and purposes, a healed bone might look fine. Just like people look at me and they say, "Oh, I can't believe you are so strong. How are you so strong? You look like you're healed." When I am far from being healed, there is such a big, huge gash in my heart. I mean, I will never heal from that. And I look strong. just like that bone looks like it's healed. But what happens when the rain comes? And what happens when the cold weather comes? Don't you see that person limping? Don't you see that person has a slightly different gait? Why? Because even though it has the appearance of being healed, it was never really restored to its original state. And that little bit of a difference will always cause a slight limp when the cold weather comes or the wet weather comes. Just like every time I hear a certain song or every time I see a certain thing or when holidays roll around, that gash in my heart resurfaces and I don't feel as good as I felt the day before. And the easy way out is to just give up. But it's not really the easy way at all, because you see, when you give up, it means that you are choosing to give up on everybody else who is still here, the people who still love you, and those that still deserve to have the best of you. Don't you agree? Don't they deserve to still have the best of you? So that's why I am doing this episode. It's very important to me because I really believe that self care is one of the most essential things that we need to survive any loss. When I lost my son, I felt shattered. I couldn't bear being around other people. But by isolating myself, I was also unknowingly choosing to separate myself from my children who are still here and my husband. One of the things that I did to dull the pain was work a lot, as I mentioned before. The only thing that working excessively did, though, was keep me away from my family. So then I decided to take that one glass of wine I was drinking daily and take it to another level. Now, when I took it to the 2 bottle level, yeah, 2 bottles, let me tell you something about Holy Spirit. By the time Holy Spirit got through convicting me, I knew I had to do something else. But the crazy thing is, when I was drinking the wine, I did not perceive anything wrong with it. Because, see, I was able to interact with my family better. I could tolerate people better. I was still able to do my work. I did not feel so shattered. But that's the catch. The sin of gluttony is real. It is so real. This is how the enemy draws you in with that false sense of security with something that was never meant to be security for you. And so this brings me to essential tool number one: spend quality time fostering a true relationship with God the Father, the only source for everything you need. We are created by God. So, doesn't it make sense that we should only put our hope, our trust, and our faith in God? He should be our only source for everything. And the minute we start relying on something else to ease our pain, whether it be work or gambling or alcohol or shopping, no matter what it is, we start fighting a losing battle. This reminds me of the children of Israel. Bear with me for a minute, okay? So, for those of you who don't know the story and those of you who need a refresher, remember the children of Israel were being enslaved in Egypt. And God sent Moses to tell Pharaoh, let my people go, remember. And Pharaoh finally let them go. It should have taken the children of Israel 11 days to get where they were going. It was about 250 miles from Egypt to the promised land. But we all know that it took them 40 years, right? You know why? Because when it was time for the children of Israel to enter the promised land, Moses sent 12 representatives, one from each tribe of Israel. There were 12 tribes, right? He sent one from each tribe there to scope out the land, to see what it looked like. When they returned, two of the 12, Joshua and Caleb, said, let's get it. It is a land flowing with milk and honey. It is beautiful. It is everything that the Lord said it was. God said that it's ours. Let's go get it. But the other 10, Oh, the other 10. These folks, instead of looking at the rich promised land that God said was theirs, they were looking at the people. They were looking at how big they were, and essentially they scared themselves out of the promises of God. So the report that they gave was that, oh, these people are giants. We're not going to be able to take that land. And they convinced the other children of Israel that they could not do it on their own. Now, these folks had the audacity to go a step further and say, we look like grasshoppers to them. Now, I know they were not reading those people's minds. You know, they weren't reading their minds. They were just saying how they felt about themselves because instead of keeping their eyes on God, they let their eyes fall to man. How many of you realize that God operates on the supernatural level, not the physical level? This is the same God that parted the Red Sea, the same God that made manna fall from heaven every day for them to have something to eat. The same God that made water gush from the rock so that the whole tribe, all 12 tribes of Israel could drink. How? How could they even begin to believe that the same God who did all of that could not give them the promised land like he said? Make it make sense. And because they feared the people and did not fear God, God said, all right, bet, as the children would say, all right, bet. Um, None of y'all gonna see that promised land. He made them wander around in the wilderness for 40 years until all of them were gone. Now their children still inherited the land because God is not a man that he should lie. The promise was still fulfilled. The question is this: will you sit in your grief, trying to extinguish it on your own, trying to figure out ways to not hurt? Or will you just go to the source who will undoubtedly have the answer for you? So, again, let's see what the word says about this. First Peter 5 and 7 says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Psalm 55:22 says, cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. And Philippians 4:6 says, do not be anxious about anything. Honestly, that's exactly where I found my answer. The more time I spent with God, the stronger he made me. Number 2, allow yourself to grieve in your own way, not based on tradition. Say this with me: I have the right to feel how I feel. Now say it one more time. I have the right to feel how I feel. That's right. You have the right to feel exactly how you feel. The worst thing that we can do is try to grieve based on how someone else grieved or how someone else feels that we should be grieving, or even how tradition has said people should grieve. You know what I mean? Think about those people who they would wear a black dress for a year to signify they were mourning the loss of their husband. And I bet you any money this whole idea came from some mother in law who lost her son and she didn't want her daughter in law going off marrying some other man too soon. And then it became for 6 months and then 3 months and then 1 month. We don't even practice that anymore. But these are the traditional things that people need to be set free from. No one can tell you how to grieve because no one understands the dynamics of your relationship with the person you lost except you. This reminds me also of a client that I had who lost her husband, and her friend told her, girl, if it was the other way around, he would have moved on by now. Now, mind you, my client told me how her husband doted on her, how she had everything she needed from him. He worked, she worked as well, but she said he did the cooking, he fixed her food, he did the cleaning, he treated her like a queen. Now, I asked my client, does your friend's husband do the same for her? And of course, she said no. So I told her, your friend has no idea what you lost. She said her friend and her husband don't even get along. So her friend over here probably can't wait till her husband is gone. She can't understand what my client was going through. Don't allow other people to tell you what is right or wrong about how you grieve. Do it the way it feels right to you. Number three, reach out for support by all means. In so many cultures, there is still a bad stigma connected to getting counseling and taking medication for mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. Grief and depression are words that are very often used interchangeably, but they are not the same. Grief is a state of being that cannot be treated with medication, while depression is a medical disorder that can be successfully treated with medication. This is important to know because trying to treat grief with medicine and customary measures used for grief will be useless and may even make matters even worse. Grief can lead to depression, though, and it can also lead to anxiety. And if it does, medication is appropriate and necessary at that time. People forget that disorders of the brain have to be treated just like disorders of any other organ. How likely are you to have chest pain and say, I'm just going to pray about it? How likely are you to have difficulty breathing and say, I need to read my Bible more? As ridiculous as this may sound, this is the same mindset you should have when it comes to disorders of the brain. Stop treating the brain with religion because that is not what God is all about. Remember, the Bible says faith without works is dead. Do you realize that the medical profession gets the caduceus logo from Moses standing on the mountaintop with snakes wrapped around his rod for the people to look at so that they could be healed? God created physicians for a reason. Please stop allowing society to make you afraid of medications that were created to be helpful. You will know if a medicine is not right for you because you're going to feel an adverse reaction from it. And if you feel an adverse reaction, guess what? You just stop taking the medicine and that reaction will go away. But matters of the brain can cause some very dangerous things to happen, things that are not reversible sometimes. That is why it is so important, or actually the most important organ for you to get under control as quickly as possible. So if you do find yourself thinking thoughts that you never thought before, having any thought that you want to harm yourself or anybody else, please seek counseling immediately. Stop listening to family and friends who think that they are physicians and don't have a lick of medical school training whatsoever. And definitely stay away from Dr. Google. Dr. Google is not your friend. But good counseling helps you express your emotions. And for those of you who are interested in my Pave Your Path to Freedom program, please scan the QR code at the bottom right hand corner of the screen and sign up for my next session. I promise you will not be disappointed. It is important for you to gain the right tools to break free from the hold that grief has on you so that you can live your life to your highest potential. Without the right tools, grief will definitely rob you of your entire life, your relationships, and your purpose. All right, number four, prioritize physical health. Physical health is so important. When you exercise, you increase the endorphins in your body. Endorphins are neurotransmitters that improve your mood. So the more you exercise, the greater the number of neurotransmitter endorphins you have, and the better you feel. This can improve your stress, it can improve your anxiety. Now, in addition to that, you need to make sure that you're eating well, staying hydrated, and getting enough rest. You need 3 balanced meals. Now, sometimes you can get away with 2, but you need a balanced meal with carbs, starches, and protein. You need to drink at least 64 ounces of water every day. That's 4 16-ounce bottles if trying to figure it out. And you need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And that being said, too much sleep. Now, if you're sleeping for 12 hours, that is also a sign that something is not right and you need to seek help. Number 5, set healthy boundaries. Look, healthy boundaries are necessary. It is perfectly fine to say no. Stop feeling guilty about saying no. You need to feel comfortable telling people when you don't want to discuss certain things. If someone says something that makes you feel bad, let them know. And if someone is being intrusive, you really need to let them know. And especially with intrusive people, we live in a society where intrusiveness has become an acceptable way of life for so many people. They see nothing wrong with it. But just because they don't see anything wrong with it, it doesn't mean that you have to tolerate it. So put the brakes on their intrusiveness. Make your healthy boundaries known to everyone. Because if you don't have healthy boundaries, you're going to allow other people to put you in a deeper pit than you are already in. All right, number 6, practice mindfulness. Let me tell you, when I discovered meditation, it was the best discovery I could have made for myself ever. Why? It is liberating. When I tell you, meditating frees your mind of all thoughts. Everybody needs to meditate at least once a day because we live in a chaotic world and we have to disconnect from the chaos, commotion, and confusion, from the fast pace of our lives. We live in a time where people rarely disconnect. It's like we get up, we start running from the time we get out the bed and we run until we go to sleep at night. Meditation helps us to recenter ourselves. It allows us to connect with God and disconnect from the world. It allows us to stop the momentum of the bad thoughts because for those of you who don't know, we think 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Most of these thoughts are bad thoughts. The Bible tells us to capture every thought and it tells us to renew our minds every day. Meditation is how we renew our minds. It allows you to power up so you can move forward in a healthier, stronger manner. I believe you need to meditate at least once a day. I've gotten to the point where some days I meditate more than once a day. Now, when you start meditating, it's going to feel difficult because your mind is going to want to start wandering everywhere. But every time your mind wanders off, just bring it back to nothing. And every time you do this, as you keep practicing, you will get better and better. If you can only do it for 5 minutes initially, 5 minute works. But work your way up to where you can meditate for 15 minutes and then for 30 minutes. I promise you, as you continue to meditate, you will see that the trajectory of your life starts to move in a more positive direction. And listen, when you start having bad thoughts, think about it. It seems like just one thought, then another bad thought, then another bad thought. Or actually, when one bad thing happens and you get frustrated, it just seems like thing after thing after thing starts happening. That's the perfect time to start meditating. Meditate and stop the momentum of the negative. All right, number 7, express your grief. Now, listen. It doesn't matter how you express it. You can express it orally by talking to a confidant. Or, like me, I just have to talk into a mirror, but I just need to get it out of my system. You can also write in a journal. But listen, the key to writing it in a journal is you write all of those feelings down. You're not trying to go back to it and you're not trying to have anybody read it. Whenever you are done, and I mean you write the raw and uncut version of how you feel now. But once you're finished writing, rip it up, tear it up, shred it, burn it, do whatever you need to do, but destroy it. You don't want anybody to read what you have written because remember, this is for you to just express yourself. And the reason you need to destroy the writing is because you need to have it in your mind that it's going to be destroyed so that you can be 100% honest with yourself. Other things that you can do, you can paint, you can engage in activities that will allow you to expend that energy, like boxing. One of the things you can do is get one of those, how you, as a kid, you had like the little dummies that would stand up and you punch it and it go down and come back up. You can get those things. Or actually, you can get a boxing ball, but you can punch it and just get all of that energy out of your system. Number 8, call your tribe. You don't have a tribe for nothing. Your tribe is essential. Your tribe is that group of people that you can call on anytime for any reason. They will lift you up, they will encourage you, they will also tell you when you're wrong. When you have a good tribe, they will do that. But call your tribe, let them love on you, allow them to be your strength, allow them to serve the purpose that they're there for, because you would do the same for them, right? Number 9, honor your loved one. Honoring your loved one is an essential tool for self care because it allows you to celebrate their lives. For me, we created the Philip Papadocci III Foundation, and we pour into the lives of the youth in our communities. We also give care packages to other grieving parents. This makes me feel really good. Really, really, really good. And the same for my family. You can do the same. Honor your loved one. Allow their memory to live on forever. I promise you, it'll make you feel like $1,000,000. And number 10, here are just some nuggets that I just wanted to add on as well for you. Give yourself grace. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Remember, Jeremiah 1 and 5 says, before you were born, I set you apart. You are a unique individual. Grieve and do it the way that feels right for you, nobody else. If you try and you don't succeed, dust yourself off. Try again. If you notice, I didn't say fail. I said if you try and don't succeed, because you only fail when you give up. Don't ever stop trying. Stop answering the cell phone every time it rings. I'm telling y'all, the cell phone is, oh, it can be a demonic thing. People have gotten so anchored and tied down and they've become prisoners, enslaved by the cell phone. Let me tell you, if you are not in a good place, if you don't feel well, if you're just not having a good day, don't answer your phone. Call them back later. And anyway, just because they decided to talk to you doesn't mean that you don't get a choice in the matter. Call them back whenever you feel better, but call them later. Go to the movies alone. Enjoy something. Get a massage. You need to get a massage maybe every week or every other week at that. And remember, you are not alone. One of the things that I realized when my son passed away was even though I was surrounded by a great, phenomenal support system, I still felt alone. But you're not alone. That's why I started sending care packages to the other grieving parents because even though my tribe and my family and my friends surrounded me, they didn't understand. They could not understand how shattered I felt. But talking to another grieving mama, that that made me feel so much better. You are not alone. Whatever it is that you are going through, I promise you there is somebody in your vicinity who has been through it too. Sometimes it helps to hear their story. Now, again, you are not trying to grieve the way they grieve, but knowing that somebody else has gone through something similar, I'm telling you, it makes you feel like you're not so alone. So, this holiday season, give yourself the gift of self care. And listen, the t shirt of the day, Serenity Zone, warning, prohibited items. Do not enter, do not come near, do not disturb my peace, do not do any. If you have any of this stuff going on, these are prohibited items. Drama, mess, bad vibes. You see that funky attitude? Mm, don't come. Don't come near me if you have any of this stuff going on. Don't forget this t shirt and all the other merchandise is available on our merchandise website, drksdbrands.com, right there. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do right now. Subscribe, 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 and help me get this message out. I I truly believe that we have been imprisoned. I believe that we have been born into prisons. The prisons that we have been born into are prisons that other people have forced on us. You don't have to live like that. You do not have to be in bondage, not to grief, not to past hurts, not to anything. You have a right to live life to the fullest potential. So, if this has been helpful for you, please click the like button, leave me a comment, and let me know what you thought. And most of all, share, 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 share with your family, share with your friends, share with anybody you think will find this useful. And don't forget, now is the time for you to start signing up for my PAVE program. PAVE, Persevere, Aspire, Validate, and Empower. It is the path to freedom. Scan that QR code at the right hand bottom corner of this screen so that you can get to my site and you can sign up. It's a phenomenal program. It's a 2-day program, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And don't forget, you were created for a purpose. Every loss you've encountered was meant to stop you from fulfilling that purpose. Don't let grief win. Don't let the devil win. Let every loss be the stepping stone that elevates your life to the greater levels where you belong. And don't forget, live life with purpose, on purpose. It's me, Dr. KSD. Peace.